everyone. Thank you for tuning in again. Today we are here with Marianne Goldweber. She's the owner of A Village. She is a medium, clairvoyant, life coach, spiritual advisor, the whole package. I am so excited you're here because you're one of my favorite people to talk to. We were talking earlier. I called her. I emailed her when I was in Greece. I found her name on this Facebook page I belong to, and I was just like, I lost my job. So you were such a wonderful help. So thank you.
I'm like, yay! Best day ever. She's like, what?
Yeah, she was excited. Yeah, you were excited. I lost my job. I was not at the moment, but I was getting there. I was getting there where I was starting to see the light and all of the goodness. So I just, the more that we had talked to, you shared your story to me. And the day we got off the phone, there was so much you told me that it was a sigh of relief. If you could just explain, you were in a corporate job and you left to go in search of what you really wanted to do or find your calling, I guess.
Right. It's kind of the beginning of the story is, societally, I did what people expected of me. I got a successful career in banking and through, which is now an amazing turn of events, I was really got a lot of messages about it was time for me to leave. Well, we don't always listen to those initial internal knowings. Right. So I ended up having to have 4 hand surgeries. And so I was disabled from my work, which was all I really knew. So I was devastated. Yeah. Because that was my power place, and I was, trying to figure out how I was going to do that, have 4 hand surgeries, have a child simultaneously, and get back to work. And that became very evident quickly that was not the plan. That was not what was going to happen. And so I took my hobby, which actually was herbalism. I'm a gardener, and I always make crafty stuff. And
good for you. I kill everything.
No, right?
Any
so do
plant.
I. Herbs. No, right? A houseplant has no chance of survival with me.
Either, none.
But herbs are weeds, so they don't really take any care. Which I love the lore. Anyway, so I actually took my hobby and turned it into a cottage industry.
That's awesome.
And so I started making stuff in my basement and selling at consignment and at craft shows. And within a year, I opened my own retail store. But yeah, that whole journey to that was not easy.
Right.
And it was really amazing.
Because you had a baby at the time, too.
Yes. Yeah, and a marriage that wasn't working.
Yeah, which I feel like a lot of people are in those places. But I think I had told you, it's like when you feel like all of these things happen to you, you're the only one and nobody possibly has any experience with this and your world is caving in. And what do we do next?
Well, I reinvented the wheel a lot because I'm kind of willful like that. Yeah. I'm a type A person, so I really don't like listening to what other people have to tell me, which is not a strength. That's not a strength. I've learned, and I've had to learn to not do that. And it was very funny because I had a very good friend who I hope will watch this, and she started a firm in her kitchen, kind of thing, in her pajamas. Yeah. She started a firm, and she said, and I cried one day, and I said, I'm just a lady in my basement making stuff. She goes, Marianne, the only person that knows you're in the basement making stuff is you. Yeah. She said, so you need to get over that. Right. She says, I started my firm in my kitchen in my pajamas. She says, nobody knew I was in my kitchen in my pajamas. Yeah. So she goes, you don't go to the gig in your pajamas. Exactly. And so if it wasn't for just these really amazing people in my life at the time who encouraged and supported me during all of that transition, I also saw that I was being victimized. Okay. That was a huge thing I had to overcome, is that it was happening to me. Mm. And I realized that it wasn't happening to me, it was happening for me. Worst day, best day. Right. Worst thing ever, best day ever. Right. So when you called me that day and said, my world's coming apart, apart isn't such a bad thing. I know it's painful in the moment. Oh, it is. So the compassion that came with that, I completely understood. Yeah. But I also wanted to remind you that best day ever.
Exactly. And even that first day that I lost my job, I went down the street to my neighbors, and
I thought you were going to say to the bar, but yeah.
Oh, well, they popped a bottle of champagne, so same difference. I mean, it's my local bar. But yeah, they popped a bottle of champagne, and they said, this is, they were like, a good riddance to the past. They were like, but this is a hello to the future. And
it takes a village.
Yeah. So speaking of it takes a village, what made you want to start this? Because now you talk to people and, motivate them and pep them up. It was so nice for me to be on the phone with such a positive person. So what made you want to move on to that business?
So during all of that, I was also having a spiritual awakening. And so that little store, what I thought was going to be my hobby in herbs and teas, developed into a gathering place for all different kinds of people. Under that umbrella of herbalism was, Native Americans and Buddhist monks and, herbalists and tea drinking ladies from Rocky River. And, I mean, it was, and they all show up on the same day, the Oberlin pagan kids. I mean, it was,
oh my God,
it was it was a very diverse, amazing, collection. And I realized that, people are just looking for community.
Yeah.
And so very quickly with a child, my son being raised in a retail environment, self-employed single mom, it became very clear that I couldn't do the spiritual aspect of what I was doing and the retail aspect. It was overwhelming.
Right.
So again, another transition out of, letting go of that to embrace something new.
Yeah.
And, and the dialogue that went on in my head at that time was, Marianne, you tell people that if something isn't working for them, that they need to let go of it and trust.
Yeah.
And so I did. I closed my business in the height of its success. One day I put up a sign that said that I'm closing.
Wow.
And I took an entire year off of life and just digested every bit of my life with a spiritual calm.
Wow.
And realized that all of the experiences I'd had were grooming me for what I was doing, that I'm going to be doing.
Right.
So I can see myself in every person I meet now. We've all been conditioned.
Yeah.
And we have, there has to be destruction.
Right.
Before there's construction.
Yeah.
And so whether that's societal conditioning or whether that's familial conditioning, that we need to find our authenticity.
Right.
In spite of what people think.
Right.
And I wanted to be that place where you were normal.
Yeah.
And that was really the big shift of our world is about inclusion, not seclusion, about coming together and, being interdependent as a society. So that's the work I do now, is to bring people together.
Yeah.
And with their common experiences as the glue that binds them together.
I love it. And I even remember the day that I called you, you said a few things to me, but one of the things that really stuck out to me was that you just kept saying, make your pain your purpose. And that's when Alex and I were talking about, doing this. And, and he even said, he was like, you need to write about this. And we started talking about doing this together. And I was like, well, Marianne said to make my pain my purpose. And this was it. And this is the path that I've been sent on. But weird things have already been happening. Connections with people, opportunities, doors opening. So I just keep thinking in my head, none of these people, I wouldn't be talking to them if it weren't for other people saying, oh, well, Sarah has this blog now that she's doing with Alex. She's working on this, and strange things are happening. It's just good things, good, crazy things that you're just like, I didn't think I would be here.
Well, awakening is realizing that all this has been going on around you the whole time, and you were just sleeping.
Oh.
So awakening alludes to the fact that we were sleeping.
Right.
So it's like waking up and going, how long has all this been going on around me?
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like the Truman Show. I always use that as a analogy for life, is that, this really is like a play, and we are actors in it, and we have chosen all the roles, and there is a hero and a villain, and even the villain has a role.
Right.
If it wasn't for the villains in my play, I would not be doing this work.
Yeah.
They had to either, hurt me bad enough for me to rise, or they had to piss me off enough for me to rise, or, but they've all been instrumental and been my greatest teachers. So if you can think of it like a play and that we're just taking a role, we can make this anything we want it to be. And we have this entire stage crew, and this is the spiritual kind of part of it, is that we have this stage crew that's constantly reminding you of why you're here, trying to get you to the right place at the right time. But it's always in battle with our ego. And so, I always joke that our ego's not our amigo. I mean, my ego's gotten me in a ton of trouble. And so I've learned that what I've realized is that I can now say, I really don't know, but I'm willing to find out.
Exactly.
So our ego makes us very ignorant of a lot of things.
Well, because we had talked about that. You had asked, you were like, I bet there were signs about your job, and there were a ton. I mean, there were flags everywhere. And I was just like, no, I'm just going to keep moving forward because it's all that I knew. It's all that I knew. And I was trying to control.
Through your fear.
Oh, it was my fear. It was my fear. Well, if I move on, what am I going to do next? I was looking for jobs and I was like, I hate everything. And then that was a lack of faith in myself. So then I'm disappointed in not having more faith in myself, but it's the fear that's still keeping me.
Right. And that's conditioned fear. We've been taught that if you don't have this, who am I without that?
Yeah.
So it becomes our identity.
Right.
When we talk to men and women about work quite frequently, men go to work to provide, whereas women go to work for identity. And it's very different. And so when I, talk to men or women about career, your job is really just the thing to do what you love, unless it is your passion and your vocation. And then, that's a whole nother thing. But the thing that did it for me was I knew I was going to have 4 surgeries. I knew I was going to have a child. And I was so desperately in my fear of losing that part of my identity. Who am I? Who will I be without this? That I was still trying to figure out how I was going to make all that work.
Right.
Well, I have to tell you, one day I had a gentleman I worked with who'd had polio and walked with crutches as a child.
Okay.
And I would watch him walk to the bank every day, laboriously. He never missed one day of work in 30 years. And one day he died on the way to work.
Oh.
And they cleaned out his desk, and it was as if he'd never been there.
Right.
And that was the day I decided I'm not coming back.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh my God.
So again, how many, all of these things, when you finally slow down, are you're being prepared for change.
Right.
It's just that we won't allow ourselves to think outside of what we know. And so I'm here to, help folks in that, whether it's death,
right.
A tragic situation,
right.
Illness or whatever, is to remind them that that is part of who they are, their experience here, and that we're going to find, the highest and best way through it.
Right.
You don't get over stuff. You get through it, and you come out much differently on the other side. Better, actually.
Yeah.
But it's hard to see in those moments of death.
Right.
Whether death is, all change is death. And that's another thing I want to talk about, is the phases of grief that come with that. People don't take the time to process change.
Right.
And there is a grief process. There is denial. There is anger. There is sadness. There is surrender, and there is acceptance. And when you finally get to the acceptance place, and they don't come in order, girl.
No, they don't.
It's like a roller coaster.
It is, even by minute.
Right. So it starts out like this, and then it goes like this.
Yeah.
And eventually it's just like this.
I feel like I'm just cruising now.
And then some of them you just aren't in anymore. Although some days I still, tap into denial for one hot second.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not a month.
Absolutely.
And so, so again, it's, that the spiritual perspective has helped me transition through those phases much differently than most people.
Now, as far as a spiritual perspective, do you find it difficult when people reach out to you if they're not really... What does that even mean, to be in tune to like the spiritual side of things? How do you explain that to people? Because I think people, as soon as they hear spiritual, they just think a bunch of hippy dippy and
well, actually, most folks know. More folks actually really do have that thinking. It's just that a lot of people aren't raised with religion anymore.
Right.
They don't understand how God, the universe, whatever label you want to put on the divine, could allow this to happen to them.
Yeah.
And that divine thing is a parent that's allowing you to create through free will your experiences and hopefully get the lessons or teachings through it. So whether we use the spiritual concept or not, it doesn't matter. It's still, we're talking about the same thing regardless. But most people are very open to, faith has allowed me to let go of the need to control things.
Yeah.
Because I know there is purpose in this. I just can't see it today.
Right.
And so faith has me knowing that there is reason. It's just not for today.
Right.
And to just do what I'm told.
I think
Which has been my hardest lesson, because I don't like being told what to do.
No, me either.
I have a very hard time with authority.
Yeah, and I think we talked about the corporate environment, and I had just such trouble with the hierarchy, because when you're in the corporate world, it's by the book, this is how things go, A, B, C, D, all the way down the line. And I'm just like, no, this is wrong. It was hard meshing my personal experiences and then dealing with people in a hierarchy that didn't have the same experience, but were trying to tell me what to do. When I heard, no, this isn't working, but then I look like the defiant asshole.
But that's a huge indicator for somebody who should be self-employed. Although that is great training ground.
Right, it was. Yeah.
I mean, it's funny because one of my last reviews, and I'm going to say hi to Joe, one of my old bosses, who probably will watch this, is he gave me a review, and he said, Marianne, you're not a self-starter. And I'm like, I do the work of 10 people. I know, yeah. I'm here early. I had issues with being late occasionally. And so after I left and I started my own business, I realized one day I was not a self-starter. And I had to call him up and go, I have to tell you, Joe, I am not a self-starter.
You were right.
He was right, but it's all about the motivation.
It was.
It was hilarious.
I had a ton of lessons to learn, and they were hard. One of those, we had talked about was letting go. And that was really hard for me, because I do want to control everything all the time, but there are other people that I've got to listen to.
Well, it was interesting because during that process of evolution for me, I was very much wanting a human teacher, a person that was going to show me what to do, and the first lesson that he showed me was how to see myself outside myself, which was possibly one of the most painful exercises I have ever done.
Yeah.
And he was Native American. And so I was very unaware of how I was affecting the world.
Yeah.
I was very critical of other people. And so through this exercise, I glaringly got to see myself through the mirror, using a smoking mirror to see myself through my criticism.
Oh, wow.
And that was probably the worst day ever, best day ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the only person I realized that I could actually change was me.
Wow.
And so when I changed, everything around me started to change.
Exactly. And I noticed that for myself too. Once I started changing, this was years ago, back after my divorce, once I started changing my attitude and how I saw things, I just noticed little things around me started changing. And I was like, okay.
And then we see our light. We're always concerned with how we're being affected, but we're not necessarily concerned with how our light is affecting other people.
Right.
So when I'm in a good place, I'm a beacon.
Yeah.
But when I'm not in a good place, I'm a force.
Oh, yeah.
And that is not the day to be going to Walmart chatting it up with folks, okay? So there's a lot that goes with it, self-care and, keeping yourself in a positive, good place, which is not always easy. But, so our light, affects people, and they respond or react to it.
Right.
And I've realized that it's not really me that they're reacting to, it's my energy.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And like I said, when I'm in a good place, people want to touch it and glom onto it. Bright lights bring big bugs.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it was interesting because, I'm a very risky human being as a person.
Yeah.
I come from people who are not necessarily.
Yeah.
And,
Same,
and so on some level, my life scares the crap out of a lot of people.
Yeah.
Just because I am very risky. I mean, like I said, I've ridden motorcycles cross country, millions of miles. I've been in situations. I've been to very bad places. I do a lot of outreach work.
Yeah.
And so if I, for instance, would say to one of my family members, I'm going to go take a road trip to Vegas on a motorcycle. The first thing they would say is, you can't do that. It's dangerous. You might die. Well, see, but that isn't me.
Right.
That's their projection of their fear. They would never ride to Vegas because they're afraid they would die.
Exactly.
So since I don't have that same kind of fear factor, I'm a little more risky. I weigh the risk a little differently than other people.
Right.
And I give other people permission to, because I'm all about the road trip.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm going to be missing out some fun stuff, you know?
Right.
So I'm all about the fun.
Oh,
which,
yeah. Aren't we? Well, I would say
I'm
we
like,
all?
forget about the risk, you know? I mean,
Right.
although I wouldn't be hang gliding off the, cliff. That's not my kind of risk. I'm more personal risk,
Exactly.
not physical risk.
Yeah,
I have a
agree.
fear of heights anyway, so. Yeah, but some of those things just don't really affect me. And so having someone else project their fear on what you should do, I'm very grateful that you realized that you needed someone who's more objective and didn't really know you.
Oh, yeah. I definitely did.
That's a big factor.
It was, and it was a huge help. What kind of advice, what do you tell people who are dealing with all of those negative people? Because I had to watch and I had to put myself in check because I started to snap. And I started to snap at a lot of people because, they would just keep going and they want to help and they think they're helping, but they're not. And I'm getting heated and I just kind of stayed away from everyone for a while, except the people who really got it and let me do my thing and let me figure this out.
Well, there's a big difference between keeping things secret and keeping things sacred. I think that we tend to overshare, and the minute you're asking someone for, here's my beautiful thing I'm going to create, what do you think? Well, they're going to give you their version of what they think it is.
Right.
So sometimes we don't keep things to ourselves enough.
Right.
And then I'm very selective about who I share those sacred things with.
Yeah.
Because it's taking time to manifest into so I don't necessarily just give those things for other people to have an opinion about right away. I kind of sit with it a bit and just allow it to, kind of evolve on its own. But yes, when you bring it to them, they're going to, you're asking.
Right.
Well, now when there's unsolicited advice, and I use this as a tool for teaching all the time, there's a very fine line between helping and interfering.
Ah, okay.
Anytime you give unsolicited advice, it's actually perceived as criticism.
Right.
And until someone asks, they don't want to know.
Right.
You're interfering in their process of coming to a place of humbling, of asking.
Yeah.
And if they want your opinion, they'll ask for it.
Right.
Yeah, well, as a very intuitive person, okay, I notice people suffering, but until they ask, it's none of my business.
Yeah.
No, it's none of my business.
Right.
I should be using that and going, Marianne, you should be updating your website or doing other things instead of noticing what they should be doing. Right. So again, we're always helping, and that's, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Right.
But if we're really helping, I don't help people who don't come to a place of asking. And even when people ask, I have to ask myself, is my involvement helping or interfering?
Oh, wow. Will you share your little crayon
So imagine,
story?
Thank you.
Yeah.
So imagine that you come here, whether it's crayons or tools, okay? So if you have crayons, you only got 3 crayons in your box. Mm-hmm. So you were born to people that only had 3 crayons. Mm-hmm. Well, that's all you ever learned to use. You color your whole world with that. And in my, outside of you is all this, a box of 94. There's so many other tools. Can you open a window with a hammer? Yes. Are there better tools? Yes. But if your people don't have those,
right.
This is where I have this village thinking.
Yeah.
Is that, when we expand our family, whether it be our physical human family or our collective family,
right.
You have many parents. You have many people with lots more tools than you. And so it does take a village to raise a child.
Absolutely.
And this is the challenge with the nuclear family is that, some folks only have 3 crayons. And so that's all you know to use. And
exactly.
And so when we work more as an interconnected, interdependent society, it expands when you expand your world expands. And then magenta isn't so crazy a color when everybody's got one.
Right, I know, right?
I love magenta.
Magenta's amazing.
Right.
It's amazing.
You can be a chameleon or you can just be magenta.
Yeah.
So when we step outside of, what we've been conditioned to have, 3 colors, and explore our world and expand our world, it expands.
Yeah.
And then you find that you're really not separate from people, that we're all the same.
Absolutely.
I always say it's like this ugly Louis Vuitton carry-on of crap. Everybody's got one.
Right.
It actually has the same stuff in it. Insecurity, trauma, dysfunction. And some people have the carry-on and some people have the 12-piece set, you know? It's just in different degrees.
Right.
Same stuff.
Yeah.
Just, you know, more.
Oh my God.
You know, so we all have one. And so when you realize that we've all had those experiences, if we all had that little card on our chest that said, I have been the victim of, or, you know, been the target of, or we would just be so much more compassionate with each other.
Right.
We're all just faking it till we make it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And once you can see past that.
Oh, and I think that's
you're
where
like,
I was at the end of my
bless her heart.
Like, oh my God. Yes, that's a lot of bless her heart.
You know, I go down south a lot. You
Oh,
know.
yeah, I used to live down there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what that really means, right?
Yeah, yes.
Aw, bless your heart. But it's all good.
Yeah, it is.
You know, we're all works in progress.
We
And we
are.
just need to learn to be gentler with each other.
We are.
You know, make this a
And-
nicer world. You know,
So I was saying, money is just a byproduct. I have to do something that makes me happy, and then the money will follow. As long as I'm happy, the $30 shampoo is not going to matter. The, you know, $20 tube of lipstick, who gives a shit, you know?
You know, it's interesting that you bring that up, is that, you know, less is more.
Yeah.
And our fear is to keep up the illusion of the lifestyle that we've created.
Exactly.
And then you come to find out that isn't as important when you're doing what you love.
It's not, yeah.
And how much do you have to have?
Right.
I mean, you know, and why are we doing what we're doing anyway? You know, a lot of what we've been doing is societal conditioning to, you know, you're not this if you don't wear this shampoo, you know, use the shampoo or this clothing line or
Right.
whatever. And you come to find out that when you simplify and you reach out, you know, most of those things just don't matter.
They don't. After that conversation with you, I was walking through the store and I was going to get some of those like makeup remover wipes, and I was like, put some damn soap on your face and just wash everything off. Why do you need all of these things? I just like pretty packaging and things.
Well, you know what really taught me which was funny, is I'm an herbalist, and so when I looked at lotion, you know, just lotion, like there's 1,000 kinds of lotion.
Oh, yeah.
If you really make lotion, if you actually made stuff, you would really know what's really in it. And it was funny because all lotion is emulsified oil. If you put oil in a blender and you just add water real slowly and whiz it, it turns into lotion. And then they just add fragrance and preservatives and other things. So it's all got the same stuff in it. It's just the packaging or the label that really drives the price up.
Right.
There's a very cool thing that I watched, and I made my son watch it as well. And it's actually called thehistoryofstuff.com. And so when you look at the marketing and the packaging, I used to sell sugar scrubs, okay? I used to make sugar scrubs.
Yeah.
It's oil and sugar and some essential oil, like 10 drops, okay? It's not a lot.
Right.
And I put them in a little jar, and they wouldn't sell. And then I put them in a cellophane baggie with a raffia ribbon, and then all of a sudden I couldn't keep them on the shelf. Because our society's been so conditioned to buy the packaging.
Right.
And that cost 10 times more than what was actually in it, which was oil and sugar.
Exactly.
Like, I had to drive the price up just because of the jar and the wrapper and the, you know, ribbon.
Right.
Right.
Oh,
but
well,
and this is what people are awakening to, is simplifying life, not just socioeconomically.
Right.
But just who we let in our life. What
Exactly.
experiences we're willing to create for ourselves.
Yeah.
So we're all on a decompressing, purging, unnecessariness in our world.
And I
Thank
love
God.
that, yeah, right? Speaking of packaging, you said we talked about the book, The Secret, earlier, and I said, you know, 10, 15 years ago, I think, or maybe 10 years ago, I don't know, I picked up that book and I was like, this is stupid. And, you know, I just chucked it. But now I can read it over and over again because I get it. But then you said, you know, it's the packaging.
Well, and, you know, we're not going to hear what we're not ready to hear.
Right.
And this is
I wasn't
why
ready to
in
hear a
Native
lot.
American culture, they use storytelling, because it allows the listener to take what they're ready for at the time.
Oh.
And this is why you hear the same story over and over again, and you grab something totally different as you're evolving.
Right.
So it creates, you know, it allows the student to take what they need when they're ready for it.
Right.
But I still, you know, you hear the same stories over and over and over again.
Absolutely.
Because they keep expanding and, so the secret is no secret.
Yeah, that's what you said.
I mean, it's divine law.
Right.
You know, it's quantum physics.
Right.
What you send out with force will come back in an equal or greater force.
Right.
That's just how it works. So whether it's a thought or whether it's
Right.
an action, you know, we're manifesting all the time what we want.
Right.
Okay, well, how's that working?
Right.
And if we can manifest it, we can unmanifest it.
Right.
And if we can, you know, get in that divine kind of law,
Yeah.
then which is reciprocal.
Right.
We're getting what we ask for all the time. If you want fear, the universe says, okay, she wants something to be afraid of, so here it is.
Yeah. I got that.
Right?
That's for sure.
So again, the secret is that we're just not conscious of what we're putting out into the world.
Right.
What our energy. So whether that energy is fear or whether that's, positive things, it comes back to you.
Yeah, I've tried to give up on the fear aspect, and I think that's why people looked at me like I was crazy. When I was in Greece, I remember I woke up one morning, I grabbed my coffee, and I was sitting at the pool staring at the Aegean, and my friend was sitting there, and she said, "How are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm good." And she was like, Are you sure? I mean, like, are you sure you're good? Because we're all conditioned too that we're supposed to be, so upset and still grieving. And I was just like, no, I'm done. I'm gonna, I had a phone call into you or an email into you, and I was like, I got this. I was like, I'm gonna get this down. I was like, I am not worrying about this. I was like, good has to come from this. I said, and I want to be...
Right, but we can't deny that it is painful initially. We can't deny our pain either.
Right.
You can't just suck it up and keep moving through it because it's going to come out eventually.
Know. Yeah. Oh, it
So
sure
I would rather
does.
take this moment and allow myself to have this human moment of tragedy.
Right.
Before the higher voice is going to come in and say, this rocks.
Exactly. Exactly.
So we have to have that moment. But yes, you just come to a place of acceptance much quicker when you realize that it's happening for you, not to you.
And that's what I was surprised at. I think my kind of... my rebound time is getting better and better when certain things happen. I take my days. I think I told you I was like in bed for the first couple days, just like forever. I wouldn't move. I didn't want to talk to anybody. And I was mad. I was angry. I was so mad. And then I got over all of that and I was just like, woohoo!
Right. So once you have that tool to be able to process those things, things appear differently. And then, we're giving energy to things that appear so tragic.
Yeah.
When, so a lot of the work I do is actually an outreach and ministerial through, very, very horrible situations. Yeah. And so when people, tell me they have an emergency, when you've seen and experienced seriously tragic things, it kind of minimizes the things that we give so much energy to as tragic. The worst thing in the world is not losing your job. You're an educated, beautiful woman who has job experience.
Thank you.
Your chances of securing another position are very good.
Yeah.
But imagine someone who's never had that training or upbringing or positive people in their life, and so those kinds of things are incredibly tragic to them.
Absolutely.
Or having a tragic death. So I think that we weigh that word. We throw a lot of gasoline on a very small fire.
Right.
And when you see the world and what really goes on here that is tragic, it has you really looking at your own life and realizing how blessed we really are.
Oh yeah. I
can't even complain.
I can't. I have nothing to complain about. Absolutely.
I can. Do I know? I mean, I might go there for a hot minute, but then, when you're faced with tragedy, and you see how other people have to live in their daily, it just brings perspective to your own reality. And so I can't really freak out. I'm like, this is not the worst thing that could happen to me.
Exactly. That's what I tried to keep telling myself. This
I
could
have
be so much worse, and it's not.
Right. And you got this.
Yeah. And
even if you were homeless, is that really the worst thing that would happen?
No, somebody would take me in out there, right?
Right. Right.
I'm a great roommate.
Well, so what's the fear then?
Exactly. My mom would actually love it. I think when I was unemployed, my mom was like, yes. She was like, do you need groceries? I'm going to the store. When you want to come
moms
home,
live for stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. My mom was thrilled. Mom, you were thrilled.
We're nurturers.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we all are, should be nurturing each other.
Yeah.
But we live for stuff like that.
Absolutely. So
I'm a mom. To many, not only my own child.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, what kind of services do you provide for everyone if they were to call you? What do you do?
Right.
I know you do so much.
I am a spiritual coach. Yeah. I'm a spiritual teacher. I
know everybody out there is going to be calling you now.
Right? I do sessions. I do sessions one-on-one with clients. I also do group events and classes and
awesome.
Everything that we've talked about today. From trusting your inner knowing. intuitive development, to philanthropic work. So I just help people through transition, whether it is
awesome.
real death or whether it's just change, not just change, but change.
Right.
Whether that's job loss, divorce, anytime you're shifting your consciousness from this way to that way is a painful process. And sometimes you just need that other person that's able to help you navigate that.
Absolutely.
So I don't need to feel your pain because I've already felt it.
Right.
So I can stand in the fire where other people get consumed.
Yeah.
So I see that as just what I serve the world with. So
I love it.
So yeah, I don't take it personal. I don't own it, but I do know what it feels like. And so I bring compassion, and I'm just trying to make this a better world, one person at a time. One day I told the gang on the other side, for me, I said, I just want to go on Oprah and awaken the world. Yeah. And they're like, no, that's not how this works. This is really one person at a time. I'm like, oh man, it's going to take an awful long time.
It does.
But this ripple I'm watching being created is amazing.
Right.
I awaken and awaken you, and you awaken. Look at the people you're affecting with your change.
Right.
I mean, there's people watching that you don't even know.
Exactly.
That you're affecting.
Well, and we even talked about this when I called you. I mean, I had that first initial phone call with you, and then 3 months later I was like, I'm going to call Marianne and see if she'll do an interview, because other people have to hear this.
Oh, I'm honored. I'm honored.
Yeah, well, I'm honored that you're here. This is
that you've taken this leap, and look at all the new people that you're affecting and meeting.
I know. So many.
When you expand your world, the world expands.
Absolutely.
And so, thank you for being a little ripple in the world. I'm very grateful, because it does take a village.
It does.
And you can do this.
So with that being said, we will wrap up here. Is there anything else?
Sarah, thank you so much. I'm so grateful to you guys
today. This is
today.
amazing. And all of you out there, please make sure we will put Marianne's information so you can also become part of the village, because this is great. And I think we all need a little helping hand to get through some things in life. And that's what she's here for.
Well, thank you for watching.
So thank you.
Stay tuned. She's got some good stuff coming. So I'm excited.
Thanks again, everybody, for watching. Make sure you subscribe to us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Follow us on YouTube, and make sure that you like this video. Thanks a lot. See you next week.
For more information about Marianne and the village, please visit mariannegoldweber.com.